It's actually quite rare for people to take an active approach to self-improvement. They may go through seasons in life where they think, "Oh, I'm going to go work out or eat a little healthier, or I'm going to find a higher paying job, or I'm going to try to find a partner." But they don't actually look at themselves and at their goals in a holistic, systemic sort of way. They don't look at the root causes of some of the problems in their lives. And so they try to patchwork together a self improvement plan that ultimately ends up being a series of band aids that they slap on themselves that just fall right off after they start resorting back to their default programming. I have been on a self improvement journey for about 15 years since my father died when I was 18 years old. And at this point in time, I've realized that it wasn't until the last 5 years did I make the biggest improvements, and I learned a lot of stuff along the way. I learned exactly what it was that I needed to be focused on in order to see the biggest changes in my life and the outcomes in what I'm doing. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what they are. Let's get into it. The first thing I want people to recognize is band-aid solutions are usually the gateway to a bigger problem. A band-aid solution is some sort of external factor that people are focused on that's actually rather superficial. It's not getting at the core of the problem. A very common thing I see here is someone is looking for a partner. They're trying to get into a relationship because they think that's going to make them feel better. They think, I just need to be loved. If I'm loved, if I have someone, I will feel whole and complete. When in reality, a person is not going to complete you. If you're feeling like there is some sort of missing component in your life, that cannot be filled by another person. That has to come from you. But people seek out love and attention and intimacy in order to try to fill that hole. When you can give that to yourself, and then you will be more prepared to share your life with someone. But they don't do that inner work. They don't actually address the root cause of their loneliness, because what they're feeling is a disconnection from themselves. And they think that having some sort of intimacy with someone else is going to make them feel more connected with themselves. When in reality, they're just falling into that person and distracting themselves with that person. That's one example of a band-aid solution. Another one is trying to get more money in order to feel like they have more worth, in order to feel more valuable. Because people value money, and therefore, if I have more money, people will value me. That's coming from a place of lack. That's coming from a place of want. I have seen the same story over and over again, where a bunch of people have gone out and made a lot of money, and then they realize that there is an emptiness there that they never addressed. There is something missing because they poured their whole life and all of their attention and time into making more money because they were running away from a pain and a fear that they were inadequate and they needed that money to feel adequate. It may take some time, but eventually what you're actually missing, what you actually need, the work that you need to be doing is going to catch up with you. You may have become successful. You may have found a partner. You may have made the money, but you did not address the root cause of what was motivating you to get those things. And that is always going to be the thing you need to work on the most, because that will make everything else fall into place. You can't be running away from something. You have to be running towards something. When I'm watching someone run down the block, they're jogging, they're exercising, that's what I ask myself. I really hope they're running towards something and not away from something. I know people who might be running because they had a slice of cake and they feel like they have to burn it off. But in my experience and my opinion, if someone is like, I just ate a whole bunch of food, I need to go run it off, they're running away from the fear of being fat. They're running away from the fear of gaining weight and what comes with that. They're running away from the fear that they are undisciplined. There's a lot of fear there when you're running away from something. And if you're one of those people who comes into my comments and says, actually gaining weight's blah, 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 it's super unhealthy for you, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know good and well that eating a piece of cake is not going to make you gain 20 pounds. Like, you're fine. Thinking, oh, I ate a piece of cake and now I have to run it off, otherwise I'll gain weight. That's an eating disorder, babe. You might have an eating disorder. I'm not here to argue with anyone about that mess. Juxtapose it with someone with the goal who wants to run a marathon, or someone who really cares about their heart health, regardless of what they ate that day. They're like, I'm gonna go for a run because it's good for my heart. And I really wanna make sure I have a strong heart as I get older. Or someone who just really enjoys running. Always think about your why and your motivation and make sure it's driven by a vision for something, a vision of a healthier future, a vision of winning a marathon, not a fear of gaining weight and all of the stigma that comes along with that. The most important skill set you will learn is self-awareness, and it can be learned. You have to get good at it. You have to think about your actions, you have to think about your motivations, you have to be honest with yourself, and you learn to do it in a compassionate way. Self-awareness is key in this journey. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to maintain integrity when you're assessing your actions and your behaviors. Self-awareness is a muscle that gets easier to flex as you flex it. And you just need to sit with yourself, journal, think about what you were doing and how you were approaching situations, and ask people for feedback. You can learn so much about yourself from the people in your life. And this is different than saying to care about what people think of you, even though I do think that there is validity in caring about what people think about you. It's just you can't care about what everyone thinks about you, just a select group of people who you value, whose opinions you value, and who you respect. Feedback is important. And if you don't have the ability to give yourself feedback, you need to find people in your life you can depend on to give you that feedback in a way that you can receive it, in a way that will not make you defensive. Because that's also a skill set, giving people feedback. People can say things to you that you just had no idea was the reality of things, because we all live in our own little bubbles, right? So for example, I had to drop out of school. My dad died when I was 18, and I went to college for about a year and a half, but I had to drop out. I was having too much emotional difficulty. It was way too much too quickly. And it was never a question in my mind about whether I would go back to college. I knew that I was going to graduate college. I was made for college. I had a friend of mine who had seen me struggle during that year I was in school before I ultimately ended up going back and finishing. And she tells me one day after I graduated from a different school, she's like, I'm really impressed by you. Like, it's truly amazing what you went through and you were able to graduate. And I'm like, what do you mean? Of course I was going to graduate. Like, that was never a question in my mind. I just needed to take a few years off before I could do it. Those kids are so loud. Oh my God. There's a playground behind my building. The windows are open because it's 68 degrees out. But anyway, back to the story. My friend, she was basically like, I don't know if I would have finished. If I went through what you went through, if I struggled with what you were struggling with, I don't know if I would have finished school. Like, I'm truly impressed by your ability to finish. And it had never even occurred to me to be impressed with myself for getting through it. It had never even occurred to me that what I did was in any way extraordinary, because it just was in my head something I had to do. I had set an intention to finish college. There was never any question. There may be another example where someone points out a kind of nasty habit that you have that is hindering something in your life. Like, you have this tendency to point fingers when something goes wrong. You really want to find someone to blame, and you never blame yourself. And that is really frustrating to the people around you. And so you should probably cut that out, because it's not serving anybody. You don't need to blame people for things all the time. You just need to fix what happened. That could be an example of feedback someone gives you, and you don't even realize you're doing it. I've seen Reddit posts where people are like, I had no idea I was being an a-hole until someone pointed it out to me. And then I realized after thinking about it that they were right. Sometimes we have blind spots. Self-awareness, if you are too self-aware, it can breed anxiety, and it can lead you to second guessing yourself sometimes, because you're questioning whether what you did was right, or whether you should forgive yourself, or whether you need to change in some way, because self-awareness can lead to over analyzing your situation. But there is a spectrum of self-awareness, and you also get better at trusting your intuition when it comes to understanding what you're going through. You can get better at analyzing your behavior and your thoughts and your intentions. You just have to flex the muscle. And I recommend trying to find some people that you can lean on in the meantime. Therapists are a very good tool for that. On top of self-awareness, I really need you to learn how to self-soothe, and I really need you to learn how to get your mindset right and get your emotions in check. You've probably seen this vibrational energy chart out there on the internet, and I gotta tell you, like, I can't tell you the science behind any of this, like the frequencies and vibrations and all of that stuff. I do believe that there's something to it, but I can't explain it to you. I have seen the shift when you are living in that enlightened space on this chart. Your life changes. Things open up for you. Things will happen for you. But so many people choose to live in lower vibrational states. An example is, I take this bus once a week. It's the same driver. And this guy allows himself to get angry about every little traffic thing that happens in front of him. Like, a biker is in front of him. He starts hitting the steering wheel. He's like sucking on his lip. He's like, come on, man. Like, he's getting mad at every single thing. And I'm like, dude, why are you choosing to live like that? Just let the biker go. Who cares? You're going to get there a minute later. Who cares? It's fine. And so many people are allowing themselves to live in lower vibrational states, and it does not serve them. That bus driver probably goes through life constantly looking for things to get angry at because he wants to be angry. He wants to be frustrated. It's where he's comfortable. It's where his brain goes automatically. Whereas I'm constantly looking for reasons to let things go, to let my anger go, to let any sort of negative frustration, inconvenience, anything, release it from my body. I don't want it near me. And I understand sometimes it still washes over me and I just have to let it go. And coming up with ways to do that is very unique to the individual. For me, I think about a waterfall, and it's like a river and there's lily pads on the river, and each of the emotions is a little frog on the lily pad, and they're like ribbiting and all that stuff. And then to make myself laugh, I have the water, like the waterfall, like the lily pad go over the waterfall and the frog kind of fall, and he's like ribbit, it's on his way down. It's kind of like the Emperor's New Groove. It gives me a little chuckle. I don't know. That's how I try to release my emotions. I just let them wander away from me. I want it gone. I want it out of my space, out of my aura. I have a friend who notices micro expressions of the people around us. And if they look cross or like they're annoyed or whatever, they purse their lips or they gave her a weird look or whatever, she will say something about it to me. Like, oh, that girl had like such a stank face. I'm like, who cares? Don't absorb her stank face. Or like, that guy looked at us weird. I'm like, who cares? Why are you giving this man any thought? He didn't talk to us. So like, he didn't interact with us. You have projected something onto him. Who cares if he thinks something about us? He's irrelevant. We're never going to see him again. Don't let little things bring you down. You want to stay in these high vibrational states as much as possible. You want to feel that calm and peace and serenity and enlightenment inside of you. That is the goal. And you want to figure out ways to self-soothe. Let it go. Don't let people get to you. The next thing I want to talk about ruffles some feathers because people aren't ready for it, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. You have to get rid of your victim mindset. So many of us are living in victim mindsets without us knowing it. Thoughts that are victim mentality come in a lot of different forms. It could be a hopelessness. I'm never going to meet the right guy. That's a victim mindset. Or I'm never going to get the job. There's so many people out there looking for a job right now. Why would I get it? That I can't do this. Victim mindset. You're allowing your circumstances to dictate your outcomes. That is why your frequency and how you look at things is so important. Being honest with yourself about what you are doing, what you're not doing, what you could be doing. Understanding that sometimes things are out of your control, but you can always problem solve it. Everything is figure outable, as Marie Forleo's mom says. That was a good book. You should read it. Getting to a place where you truly believe that you are capable of achieving what you have set forth despite the obstacles in your path, despite the circumstances that you are being put in. It is possible. And if you allow learned helplessness to dictate your outcomes, you are living in that space. You've probably heard of the demure trend. Jules LeBron is the one that popularized it. And I want to play a TikTok from her that I thought was wonderful. So let's play it.
Clock that tea though. Okay, so recently I stopped victimizing myself. And it's crazy how life has opened up since I stopped pretending like I'm like a fucking victim. Like since I pretend like the world's against me. Sometimes you're the fucking problem. Like honestly, for me, I felt very like unheard throughout like most of my childhood, and I felt like my parents like invalidated a lot of my feelings, and that made me turn into a loud ass complainer. Anytime anything happened to me or anytime I perceived something, I perceived it as it was like the worst thing that ever happened to me, or like it was only happening to me. Like other people don't be going through the same shit. You know what I mean? Like especially like, you know, being trans, being plus size, it was just so easy for me to be like, no, like brands don't want to work with me because like I'm big, and brands don't like want to work with me because I'm trans. Maybe brands don't want to work with you because you're messy and you don't post consistent content or quality content most of the time. Maybe that's the reason, babe. Maybe it's because you come out this bitch complaining all the goddamn time about brands, and then you put brands on the spot, and then you wonder, why don't brands want to work with me? Well, and ever since I shut the up and I looked at myself and I said, you're acting like a victim. You think you're owed something because you got a few followers? people are dying. Like people are literally dying. You know what I mean? Like, get it together. And you know what's crazy? Ever since I've like took more responsibility and stopped acting like a kid, got a full-time job, got my own apartment, brand deals coming in, started losing weight, started having better skin, started feeling better, started getting more confident. like when you just say, hey, you know what? Sometimes I'm a piece of shit and I need to fix it, then you can actually fix it. But when you come up on here all the time talking about like, oh my god, and this happened to me, and then oh my god, like that happened to me, and then oh my god, like no, and then this brand doesn't. Girl, the world don't owe you shit. If you don't get up off your ass and make something work for you.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if all you're doing is complaining about things not working out for you, you're going to just focus on things not working out. And then that's going to just keep being your reality. When instead, if you take a look at the reality of the situation, it may not be a pretty situation. There may be some obstacles in your path, but at least you have an understanding of what you're up against and how you can go about changing things in your life. She talked about how she kept complaining about brands not wanting to work with her. And then she realized the fact that she was complaining and putting them on blast was probably leading to them not wanting to work with her. And she also realized that she wasn't doing everything she could to actually make the brands want to work with her, to make herself more marketable. Jules manifested all of her success right now because she did the internal work to realize where she was going wrong and she fixed it. Jules also brought up being trans and being plus size, which to me is an allusion to systemic oppression, right? And the obstacles that some people face because of the circumstances of who they were born. Obviously, this is a real thing. The thing people have to understand about self-improvement is it is focused on the self, and in that it is not focused on the systemic issues and changing society as a whole. Self-improvement focuses on self-efficacy. Self-improvement is looking at what you can do to change your situation and your circumstances within the existing system. If you're looking for something that's going to tear down the, patriarchal, racist, whatever structures that are out there, then that's not self-improvement content. That's not what you come to this content for. You come here to focus on what you can control. I'm not saying that we shouldn't address those issues. Obviously, we should. I received a comment on one of my videos about manifestation, talking about oppression and systemic oppression, and manifestation sounds like you're telling people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And it is, because it's an incomplete conversation. Manifestation is only focusing on the self. And when you only focus on the self, you are telling people this is what you can do to improve your situation, despite the obstacles out there. Now, I think a lot of people get upset at the victim mentality stuff because there is a subset of people out there who will look at activists and look at people trying to change the oppressions out there, and they will call those people victims. They will say, you're just being a victim. There are plenty of people such as who share the same characteristics as you, race, gender, whatever, who are able to make it in this world and they're doing fine. You're being a victim by calling out the oppressions. That is them trying to silence people. That is not what I'm talking about. When someone is saying that an activist is being a victim, they are just basically saying that the person who's pulling the fire alarm set the fire. It's not the same thing as saying, don't allow your circumstances, don't allow some sort of systemic oppression to affect your goals and your actions in life. What's the alternative? Do I just lay down and rot? I can name a bunch of activists who didn't do that despite the tremendous amount of odds placed against them. Martin Luther King didn't say everything's bad, we should all just give up and not even try. He said the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. That sounds like law of attraction to me. I recognize that I'm practically translucent. I can't talk about racism. I can't talk about any of that. My foundation shade is sickly Victorian boy. I'm that pale. I have seen my fair share as a plus size woman who has dealt with other issues that I'm not going to put on the internet. It can suck and it can be defeating and it can really knock you down. But it's very important to have a shored up self-concept to give you all of the strength and perseverance that you can have in the face of these oppressions, in the face of dealing with situations that will not be fair. I just don't want people to allow themselves to think, well, the world isn't fair and therefore I'm screwed. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I'm begging you. I'm not going to pretend like the world is fair. I'm not going to pretend like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all the isms and the phobias don't exist. They do. But why are you going to let that stop you? Just because it's hard? Just because it's unfair? Don't let it stop you, please. I wrote this out a little more than I usually do because I wanted to get my words right, and I really like how I wrote it here, so I'm just going to read it to you. The alternative is giving up. Self-concept work, which is at the core of manifestation and of doing the self-improvement work, it's about building the resilience to keep going even when the world knocks you down. It's about trusting in your own power to rise up again. And if you believe in spiritual guidance, if you believe the universe or God or whatever it is forging a path for you, it's leaning into that strength. It's leaning into your strength. It's leaning into your right as a person to exist despite how difficult it is. Do not just lie down and rot, please. I know it's hard, but you can do it because you're extraordinary and you have to believe that. The last thing I wrote down for this video is to talk about mindset and how to get your mindset right. Gratitude. Every little thing. Be happy about every little thing. Find joy in anything you can. Grateful, express it. Just think it in your head. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad I bought this new phone case. I just dropped my phone, and if I didn't have that phone case, I would have broken my phone. That's gratitude. Taking a split second out of your day to recognize that something went right. And it makes it easier to deal with all the things that go wrong because you're balancing it out. Another mindset tip is always trying to reframe negatives as a positive. Earlier today, when I was going out, I missed the train and I had to wait 10 minutes for the next one, and it was annoying, but I told myself I wasn't meant to be on that train. There was probably some gross thing in the train car, or I got to look up my directions and make sure I'm going to the right place and that I was going to make everything on time. And this next train that I got actually lined up with my connection much better. So I ended up not having to wait as long at the connecting stop. And I like waiting at the previous stop better. So it worked out. Little things to reframe negative experiences to positive ones. It wasn't that bad. My life goes on. Another mindset tip, affirmations. Just affirm yourself every chance you get. Tell yourself good things. If you could choose to tell yourself something, why would you tell yourself bad things? Tell yourself good things. How you speak to yourself matters. I am valuable. I am good at this. I am meant for doing this work. If you could find affirmations that you really like, just keep them in your phone. Keep a list of them. Some of my favorites are, today could be the day that changes the rest of your life. That makes me happy. Saying that, I have that as a recurring reminder in my phone every day. Affirmations can also be questions. One question I ask myself every day, another recurring reminder is this a choice a person who loves themselves would make? Are you making choices throughout the day that is consistent with a person who loves themselves? Makes you think. Makes you think. That's it for the video today. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I really appreciate you. You have no idea. And I'm going to let the algorithm pick a video that it thinks you might like. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. I love hearing from you guys. Until the next one.